Again, welcome back to our channel. You noticed her avoiding eye contact, keeping her distance, or acting completely indifferent whenever you're around. It might seem like she's not interested at all. But what if there's more to it than meets the eye? Sometimes the way women express themselves can be quite complex, masked beneath layers of subtle gestures, contradictory actions, and unexpected behavior. What if her aloof demeanor isn't rejection, but rather a sign of deeper feelings she's trying to hide today? We'll be uncovering 10 compelling signs that reveal when a woman is pretending not to like a man, when in fact she does these key behaviors, though often overlooked, might just transform how you interpret her actions. From subtle body language cues to unspoken emotional defenses, will break down the hidden signal she might unintentionally be sending if you've been second-guessing her intentions or wondering whether her distance hides a spark of interest. This video is for you. Stay tuned as we explore signs that could help you decode her real feelings. By the end of this video, you might just see her behavior in a whole new light. Don't miss it. Your answers start here. Number 1, the social butterfly act. Picture this scene, a girl in a room full of people, effortlessly engaging with everyone around her. She's laughing, making conversation, and seems to have the spotlight wherever she goes, except when it comes to one specific guy. If you've been in the situation, you might wonder, is she really indifferent, or is there something more to her behavior? This is what we call the social butterfly act. A unique way women sometimes mask their feelings when a woman is pretending not to like someone. She might consciously or unconsciously ramp up her socializing efforts, especially in his presence. You'll notice her talking, joking, and bonding with others, but she'll avoid direct interaction with him. It might seem like she's not interested, but in reality, she's using this method as a way to draw his attention without coming on too strong. She's hoping he notices her confidence, her charm, and the easy way she engages with everyone but him. However, underneath the surface, there's often a longing for acknowledgement. Her constant chatter is likely masking a slight nervousness. She just doesn't want to make her feelings obvious, believe it or not. While she avoids him, she's aware of his every move. This tactic might seem contradictory, but it's a subtle way of creating intrigue by making him feel like she's out of reach. She hopes to pique his interest. The key here is to focus on context. Does she throw quick glances in your direction when she thinks you're not looking? Does she seem unusually active in her interactions, only when you're present, if so? This behavior isn't random, it's her way of ensuring you notice her spark in the crowd, even when she pretends not to care. Number 2, the I am busy excuse when a woman is pretending not to like a guy. She might suddenly become the busiest person you've ever met. Maybe she starts cancelling plans at the last minute, claiming her schedule is packed, or she delays responding to messages with vague reasons, like, I've been swamped, or things have been crazy lately on the surface. This might seem like a surefire way to communicate disinterest, but in reality, it can be another layer of her emotional camouflage. Here's how it works by telling you she's too busy. She creates an air of independence and nonchalance. She doesn't want to seem overly available or eager, even if she secretly checks her phone. The minute you message this approach often stems from a combination of nerves and strategy. She wants to see how much effort you'll put into breaking through her guarded exterior if you're left unsure whether she's genuine or playing hard to look for certain cues. For instance, does she subtly keep tabs on you despite her busy schedule? If she finds ways to be active on social media or asks mutual friends about you, it's a possible sign she's not as detached as she's letting on. Additionally, she might engage in selective responsiveness. She'll ignore some of your messages or take hours to reply, only to respond in a more enthusiastic tone when she finally does her underlying motivation, testing the waters she might be worried about, showing her feelings too openly, so she uses busyness as a shield to keep her emotions under WRAS. While this can be frustrating for the guy on the receiving end, recognize that it's often a defense mechanism if she consistently finds small ways to stay connected. Even through minimal interaction, her "I'm busy" excuse could be less about disinterest and more about self-protection. Number 3, the subtle flirting. Flirting doesn't have to be obvious to be intentional. When a woman is pretending not to like a guy, she often dials down her flirtation to the ist of cues. This is her way of maintaining her feelings under wraps while still testing the waters to see if he notices her interest. Unlike typical obvious flirting where compliments and bold gestures take center stage, subtle flirting relies on what's left unsaid and actions that leave just enough room for interpretation. What does this look like? It could be a fleeting touch on the arm when she's walking past, a half smile when she makes eye contact, or even lingering in conversations just long enough to make an impression. While these actions might seem casual, they're often deliberate attempts to create a spark without explicitly revealing her feelings. It's the art of being noticed without being exposed. She may also use playful teasing, but carefully, so perhaps she makes a light-hearted joke about something he said, or she finds ways to compliment him in a backhanded style, enough to be noticed, but not too much to seem overly interested. Then there are the coy smiles, slight tilts of the head or soft laughs that might feel familiar. These nonverbal cues are often her way of bridging the gap between indifference and attraction. It's important to remember is that subtlety is key. She's not trying to win him over through grand gestures, but by leaving breadcrumbs that he can follow for the guy in question. Paying attention to these tiny details can be incredibly revealing. Her intentions are often in the pauses, the subtext, and the moment she balances on the edge of saying one thing, but choosing to hold back. Number 4, the hot and cold act. Few things are as confusing as the infamous hot and cold Act 1. Moment. Everything seems great. She is smiling, laughing, and engaging warmly, but then, seemingly out of nowhere, she pulls back, becomes distant, and acts indifferent for men experiencing this. It often feels like they've been hit by an emotional roller coaster that's impossible to decode. But when a woman is pretending not to like someone, this erratic behaviour is often a calculated move. Here's why this happens. On one hand, she might be genuinely interested, but worried about appearing too vulnerable by alternating between warmth and aloofness. She ensures that her feelings stay guarded. One day, she engages with enthusiasm, giving just enough attention to hold his interest. The next, she's almost unapproachable, making him question where he stands. This unpredictability keeps him guessing, and at the same time protects her from the possibility of being rejected. The hot and cold act is also a subtle way of testing how much he values her, if he's willing to pursue her. Despite her inconsistent signals, she sees it as a sign of genuine interest. While frustrating, this back and forth is often about creating emotional intrigue for her. It's easier to play it cool and retreat than to fully invest her emotions right away to spot this behaviour, look for patterns. Is there a rhythm to her emotional shifts? Does she seem engaged and enthusiastic some days only, to pull back entirely if? So this inconsistency might not stem from disinterest, but from her efforts to manage her feelings while keeping her intentions ambiguous, though maddening. It's often just her attempt at gaining clarity without risking her heart. Number 5. The jealousy game. Jealousy is one of the most telling signs when someone is trying to hide their feelings for women who are pretending not to like a man. This often manifests in subtle and not so subtle ways. She might mention other men, casually flirt with someone else in his presence, or show an unusual amount of interest in what he's doing and who he's with. While these actions might appear indifferent or even dismissive at first glance, they're typically designed to evoke a reaction when she pretends not to like him. Bringing another person into the picture can serve two purposes. First, it creates distance, which allows her to maintain the facade of disinterest. Second, it tests whether he'll respond emotionally. For example, if she flirts openly with someone else, she might glance over to see if he's reacting. Because her jealousy tactic has achieved its goal, it reassures her that he cares. On some level, another form of this game is casual name-dropping. She might talk about how someone invited me out this weekend without clarifying, much leaving room for him to feel a hint of insecurity at its core. The jealousy game is all about stirring the pot just enough to keep the guy invested emotionally without making her own feelings too obvious. What should you look for? Hints of possessiveness? Are a dead give away? Does she seem more engaged or flustered when discussing his female friends? Does she suddenly switch gears and become unusually interested in his activities? After a period of indifference, these moments indicate that beneath her pretense, she's actively invested in how he feels, while the jealousy tactic might come off as frustrating. It's often her way of protecting herself while seeking emotional validation from him. Number 6, the glance game. Think about this scenario. You find yourself in the same room with her, and although she seems engrossed in her surroundings, there's something about her behaviour that stands out every now and then. Out of the corner of your eye, you catch her sneaking a quick glance your way. This is what we call the glance game, and it's one of the most telling signs a woman is pretending not to like a guy while secretly harbouring feelings for him. The glance game is subtle, yet intentional. She's trying to observe you without making it obvious, stealing brief moments to satisfy her curiosity or gauge your behaviour. Her body language often mirrors her internal conflict. She might look away quickly the moment you make eye contact or pretend she wasn't looking at all. These stolen glances can happen multiple times throughout your interaction, whether you're in a group setting, at a party, or even across the room. Why does she do this? Because looking at someone she finds intriguing is natural, and it's difficult for her to stop herself entirely, even if she's trying to downplay her interest. But it's also a defensive move. She doesn't want to be caught staring or give away her emotions, so she keeps it fleeting. The glance game becomes a quiet form of communication, one that's harder to notice unless you're paying close attention. If you catch her looking at you and she quickly averts her gaze, don't dismiss it as a coincidence. Combine this with other signs such as her body turning slightly in your direction, or her heightened awareness whenever you move around. These moments can reveal her true feelings, even if she pretends to act indifferent. Number 7, the oops moment. Have you experienced situations where she accidentally bumps into you, drops something near you, or creates an unexpected moment where your paths cross? These so-called oops moments are rarely as unintentional as they seem when a woman pretends not to like a guy but feels drawn to him. She often engineers these small interactions to create opportunities for connection without putting herself at emotional risk. Picture this: you're at a coffee shop and she brushes past you just a little too closely, or you're at work or class and she accidentally knocks over her belongings in a way that requires your attention. While these gestures might seem random, at first they're often deliberate moves to draw you in. They allow her to interact with you briefly, test your reaction, and gauge how you respond to her presence. Why does she opt for these seemingly accidental moments? The answer lies in her desire to bridge the distance while maintaining plausible deniability. She might not feel comfortable initiating a direct conversation, so she chooses these subtle encounters to spark a connection. They give her the chance to gauge your reaction without making her feelings obvious. Pay attention to the frequency of these oops moments if they happen more often than one might consider random. It's worth considering whether they're genuine coincidences or intentional attempts to catch your attention. Also, notice her behaviour immediately afterward. Is there a nervous laugh, an apologetic yet slightly extended interaction, or an effort to hold a brief conversation? These clues can help decode if her actions are part of a tactical approach to get closer to you while pretending she's uninterested. Number 8, the teasing technique. Teasing is one of the oldest tricks in the playbook when it comes to hidden attraction. If a woman likes a guy but isn't ready to show it outright, she might use playful teasing as her subtle way of connection. At first glance, her jokes or light-hearted remarks might come across as disinterest, but in reality, they are often laced with hidden emotions. She can't fully bring herself to express, what does this teasing look like? It can show up as harmless sarcasm, jokingly pointing out one of your quirks or throwing playful challenges your way. For example, she might say something like, "Oh, is that the best you can do after a casual comment?" You make the goal is to maintain an A of lightheartedness while building rapport. Her teasing becomes a tool to create a bond that feels easy and natural without the pressure of addressing her actual feelings. Head on, but don't misunderstand. Her teasing isn't about putting you down. There's often a smile, a laugh, or even a slight blush during these interactions that reveal her intentions. She's creating moments of shared humour to test your reaction and see whether you enjoy her playful side. If you tease her back, you're likely to notice her response growing warmer with more smiles or laughter. Each time, teasing also allows her to flirt without being overly vulnerable. It's less obvious than a direct compliment, but still creates a sense of connection that keeps you intrigued, while it might feel like light banter on the surface. Her teasing technique could be her way of letting her guard down just enough to see if you're open to something. More number 9, the ignoring game. The ignoring game is perhaps one of the most confusing tactics a woman might employ when she's pretending not to like someone she actually has feelings for. She'll act as though you're invisible, barely react to your presence, and might even seem uninterested in engaging with you. However, beneath this distant exterior, she's often hyper-aware of your actions and secretly hoping for some sign of your interest in return. Why does ignoring come into play? It's a defense mechanism. She might be conflicted about revealing her feelings, unsure of your intentions, or afraid of appearing too eager by acting indifferent. She works to protect her vulnerability while also testing how much effort you're willing to invest in getting her attention. But here's where her true feelings tend to leak through. If you look closely, you'll notice small contradictions in her behaviour. For example, while she might not initiate a conversation, she could linger nearby as if hoping for you to make the first move. Or perhaps she avoids your texts, yet consistently views your social media stories. Within seconds, these actions point to her attempts to maintain distance while staying connected to you indirectly. The trick to identifying this game is patience. Pay attention to whether she's ignoring you, intentionally or genuinely. Disinterested? Is there a shift in her behaviour when you engage or compliment her? Does she respond with subtle excitement or flash a quick smile before going back to acting aloof? If so, her ignoring tactic is likely a temporary front she's using to avoid exposing her deeper feelings too soon. Number 10. The vulnerable moment after all the pretense distance and mixed signals. There often comes a moment when her true emotions break the surface. It's during these rare, vulnerable moments that her guard drops, providing glimpses of how she really feels about you. This could happen unexpectedly, like in a casual conversation, during a quiet emotional exchange, or even in an unfiltered reaction to something meaningful you say or do. Imagine this after days or weeks of her keeping her feelings hidden. She suddenly shares something personal, a thoughtful compliment, a heartfelt story, or an emotional confession about how she's been feeling. These moments of vulnerability often feel out of character compared to the controlled and distant facade she's maintained. For example, she might admit, "I didn't mean to ignore you. I just didn't know what to say," or reveal a more genuine, affectionate side of herself in the way she speaks or looks at you. These moments are not accidental. They typically arise when she feels safe, comfortable, or secretly hopeful that you'll pick up on the emotional significance of what she's sharing. Vulnerability is the point where the wall she's built around her. feelings begins to crack and her defense mechanisms soften, revealing the depth of her emotions. What should you do in these moments? Respond gently and without judgment by creating a supportive environment. You not only validate her feelings, but also encourage her to continue. Opening up her act of vulnerability is a clear signal that despite her earlier efforts to hide her emotions, there's genuine interest and affection underneath that. She's been hesitant to express all along. Conclusion: understanding the subtle signs that a woman likes you, but is pretending otherwise, can feel like decoding a complex puzzle from playful teasing to moments of vulnerability. Her actions often speak louder than words by paying attention to these behaviors and responding with patience and empathy. You can create a connection that allows her to feel comfortable expressing her true feelings. Remember, the key is to read between the lines and approach her mixed signals with care, because beneath the seemingly indifferent exterior, there may be a depth of affection waiting to be uncovered.